Hi, welcome back to the channel. I'm Julian Gower and this is Inspecting History. And on my channel, I talk about all things history. So if you love history, this is the channel for you. Today, I wanted to talk about the Drake plate. So what is the Drake plate? Well, the Drake plate is a brass plate that was purportedly left by Sir Francis Drake on his exploration of discovery in 1579 when he landed in California and claimed land for Queen Elizabeth and her successors. Sir Francis Drake was born in 1540 in England during the Age of Discovery or the Age of Exploration. So naturally he became a sailor, an explorer, a privateer, and a slave trader. And he was very good at all of those things. In 1585, tension between England and Spain was pretty frosty. And of course, religion had everything to do with it. Protestant England had signed a treaty with the Protestant Dutch against the Catholic Spain, and that enraged King Philip of Spain. Adding to that was the fact that Philip had wanted to marry Queen Elizabeth of England, and she had wanted absolutely nothing to do with that. Philip had previously been married to her half-sister, Mary I of England. And if you know anything about Elizabeth I, you know that that marriage was never going to happen. So in 1577, Elizabeth commissioned Drake to go on a voyage of discovery. But what it really was a government-sanctioned excuse to plunder and raid Spanish ports and ships. Drake headed out in December 1577. He had 5 ships and 163 men. And on his voyage, he ended up plundering 13 Spanish ships, 12 merchant vessels, and 5 Spanish ports. By the time he got to the Pacific, he knew the Spanish were after him, and he was down to 1 ship, the Pelican, which he renamed the Golden Hind, and he had 130 men. So what he does is he goes way out to sea, which is where he can't see the land, and he headed straight north and then went north-northeast. What he was looking for was this fabled Northwest Passage. Now that was a waterway that separated Asia from North America and would have allowed him to get back to England very quickly instead of having to go all the way down through South America. It's not clear how far north Drake got. Some say it was 48 degrees, but the official account says 44 degrees, which would have put him right around Seattle. If he had gone just a little bit further north to Victoria Island, he would have seen probably what he would have thought would have been the Northwest Passage, and that would have been a big deal. So I don't think he got that far. So they had to turn around, like I said, they had to turn around because of the cold and the wind, and they were headed home. But the Golden Hind was taking on water and it needed to be prepared for the voyage home. So Drake started looking for a bay so he could careen the vessel. Now, what I found out careening is where you flip the boat on its side, where you can repair and clean the hull without it being marooned. And now there were quite a few bays that Drake passed, but obviously he found none of them suitable until he got to around the San Francisco area. The official landing spot was described as being within a ½ degree of 38 degrees north, within the Miwok territory. The islands of St. James were not far from the bay. There was no strait. The cliffs looked like the cliffs of Dover. The climate was cold, foggy, and windy, but the interior was fertile and hospitable. And the bay faced south, and it was in a second series of bays if you were traveling south. He spent 5 weeks on the coast of California fixing his ship and trading with the Indians. And before he left, he claimed the land in the name of Queen Elizabeth and all of her heirs. And he purportedly nailed a brass plaque to a tree to indicate that this was their claim. He left California and returned to England in September of 1580. He was only the 2nd man in history to circumnavigate the globe, and he was the first to return alive because Magellan died on his voyage. He turned over the entire contents of his hull, all of the treasure and the plunder that he had, including all of his notebooks and maps, to Queen Elizabeth and her cabinet. And they sat on it for a while. It's possible that she sat on that information because she just did not want to antagonize Spain any more than what they had already done. The official report came out in 1589, which was a year after the English defeated the Spanish Armada. All of the documents have been lost, and we know that the map was absolutely destroyed in the Whitehall Palace fire of 1698. But nobody knows where the documents were. They probably were with the map and were destroyed in the fire, but nobody has seen them. So fast forward to 1933, when a chauffeur was walking along the beach and he found this brass plaque, and he thought he would use it for scrap, so he threw it in his back car. A couple of months later, he decided he didn't need it and he threw it back on the beach. And then 3 years later, someone else found it, cleaned it off, thought it was suspicious, and sent it to the University of California at Berkeley, where Herbert Bolton got his hands on it. Now, Bolton was a very well-respected academic and historian. He really, truly believed that Drake did land at what was now considered Drake's Bay. And it became almost an obsession for him to find this brass plaque. And now suddenly it has fallen into his lap. So he quickly examined it and authenticated it. He had other academics look at it, and then it was widely accepted that this was Drake's brass plaque. And it proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that Drake landed at Drake's Bay. And that was believed for 40 years until the 1970s, when technology caught up. The area was about to celebrate the 400th anniversary of Drake's landing, and so they wanted to do some more testing on the plate, and they sent it out. And immediately it was discovered that it was modern rolled brass. It was a forgery. It's a good thing that Bolton wasn't alive, because I'm sure that would have absolutely devastated him. But why would somebody do that? There are many things that come to mind, but one is that there's always been contention about where Drake actually landed in California. And finding this plaque, like I said, solidified, yes, this is where he landed. The rest of you guys can just shut up because we know this is where he landed. But who would want to have done that? Well, certainly Bolton would have wanted to do that. But would he have wanted to risk his career to do that? I don't think so. There are two theories I'm going to discuss here about this plate. The first one is that the plate that was found in the 1930s was authentic and real, but sometime between then and the 1970s testing, it was stolen by a group of members of the library where it was being held, because they thought that it contained clues to a treasure that Drake had buried. And that's just kind of really asinine, because Drake would not have buried any treasure. He wasn't coming back. He wanted to keep every last piece for himself and the Queen. So I don't believe that at all. Okay, so the second theory is that a group called E. Clampus Vitus, so ECV is what we'll call them, that they created this brass plaque as a hoax. So this society was started back in the gold rush, and it was pretty rowdy. And it had morphed into what it was in the 30s, which was more of a rowdy historical society. And one of the things that they did was they played pranks on each other. And Bolton was a member. So the theory here is that 4 other members of this group decided to play a practical joke on Bolton because he was being all nerdy about this plaque. So they made the plate, and they placed it where they thought that it would be found. And it was, and then thrown back, and then found again. And then by the time Bolton got it and authenticated it, and the members found out about it, it was almost too late. Coming out after Bolton had authenticated it would have tarnished his career as well as theirs. So they decided not to come out publicly, but they did try to tip off Bolton with clues and comments, and it really didn't work because he was just certain this was Drake's plate. And he went to other links and he had it authenticated by other experts. So he was very, very certain that this is what it was. And so the matter just went silent. Nobody talked about it, and everybody assumed that that plate was real. So now after it was discovered as a fake, that opened up all of these new theories about where Drake's landing spot was. There are over 20 reported sites for Drake's landing, and I'm only going to go over 2. The best argument is for Whale Cove in Oregon. Now there are only 2 official accounts of the voyage that survived, and they weren't written during the voyage but afterwards, and they both state that the landing site was at 44 degrees north, which would put it at Whales Cove. Whales Cove also has the White Cliffs. It should also be stated that Whales Cove is unnavigable. Ships have to stay 600 feet away from shore for a mile south and a mile north. And then the second one is just basically the whole San Francisco area, because there are so many reported landing sites. Now everybody wants to find the exact spot where he landed, or at least find the right area, instead of saying it's just Drake's Bay, which is rather big. They want to pinpoint it. In 2012, the U.S. Department of Interior designated Point Reyes as the actual landing site. There is no doubt that Drake went on a voyage of navigation. There is no doubt that Drake was in California. What is in doubt now is where is his actual landing site? And I don't think we're ever going to know unless his map and all of his documents, including his journal, miraculously show up. And until then, the debate will continue. I hope you liked today's video. If you did, please like it. It helps YouTube push my video out to other people. And if you want to learn more about history, be sure to subscribe because I post new videos every Thursday.